The moon hung heavy in the night sky, casting eerie shadows over the dense forest as I trudged along the narrow hiking trail. The serenity of the woods was a deceptive cloak for the fear that had begun to gnaw at my insides. I had always loved hiking, but tonight was different. Something about the stillness felt unsettling. I was supposed to be alone on this late-night hike, a personal retreat from the cacophony of my everyday life. But as I ventured deeper into the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I had parked my car at the edge of the forest, the gravel crunching beneath my boots as I took the first few steps onto the trail. The path was barely visible under the canopy of trees, and I relied heavily on my flashlight to guide me. I had taken this trail many times before, but tonight it seemed unfamiliar, distorted by the low light and the oppressive quiet. The deeper I went, the more the familiar trail began to shift and twist into something unrecognizable. The trees grew denser, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The air felt thicker, heavier, and with each step, the silence seemed to grow louder, almost deafening. I stopped to catch my breath and glanced at my watch. It was nearly midnight. I was about to turn back when I heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. My heart raced, and I strained to listen, but the whispering was gone as quickly as it had come. I dismissed it as the wind, or maybe my imagination playing tricks on me. I resumed walking, but the trail ahead looked different. The path seemed to diverge into two separate routes, neither of which matched any I had seen before. Anxiety tightened around my chest as I tried to make sense of the change. I decided to take the left path, reasoning that it looked less overgrown, but with each step I became more aware of a growing sensation of dread. The whispering returned, this time more distinct, though still barely audible. It sounded like a conversation held just beyond the reach of my hearing. I called out, "Hello, is someone there?" But only the sound of my own voice echoed back. I quickened my pace, desperate to find my way out of the disorienting labyrinth of trees. The darkness seemed to press in on me, and the moonlight that had once been my guide now felt like a cruel joke, casting strange, shifting shadows that danced just beyond my vision. My flashlight flickered ominously, casting erratic beams of light that only seemed to heighten the sense of foreboding. As I turned a corner, I stumbled upon a small clearing I didn't recognize. At the center was a crude stone altar, its surface covered in what looked like dried blood. Panic surged through me, and I backed away from the grotesque sight. The whispers grew louder, now clearly coming from all directions, weaving in and out of my consciousness like an unsettling symphony. I spun around, searching for any sign of a familiar landmark or a way out, but the trees seemed to close in around me. It was as if the forest had become a living, breathing entity, its roots and branches shifting to confine me in this nightmarish labyrinth. My flashlight died abruptly, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled for my phone, but the screen was unresponsive, dead as well. Suddenly, I heard a rustling sound behind me. My pulse quickened, and I whirled around, only to be met with an inky blackness that swallowed the light of my phone. The whispers intensified, forming a disjointed chorus of voices that spoke in a language I couldn't understand. Fear constricted my throat, and I sprinted through the forest, my breaths coming in ragged gasps. I ran blindly, tripping over roots and rocks, until I found myself at the edge of a steep cliff. My stomach dropped as I skidded to a halt, my eyes straining to see beyond the precipice. The whispers had ceased, replaced by an oppressive silence that was even more terrifying. I was cornered, with no way to go but forward. As I peered into the darkness below, a shadowy figure appeared on the opposite side of the cliff, illuminated by the faint light of the moon. The figure was gaunt, almost skeletal, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. It stared at me, unmoving, and I could feel its gaze like a physical weight pressing down on me. A chilling realization crept over me. This was no ordinary forest, no ordinary night. The figure began to move, its movements jerky and unnatural, as if it were being controlled by invisible strings. It raised its hand, and the whispers started again, now clear and malevolent. They chanted a rhythmic incantation, filling the air with a sense of impending doom. Desperate to escape, I turned and ran along the edge of the cliff, searching for a way down or a path that might lead me to safety. The ground beneath my feet felt unstable, and each step was a gamble between solid earth and an abyss. I could hear the figure following me, its footsteps echoing with a haunting precision. Just when I thought I could run no longer, I saw a faint light in the distance, perhaps a sign of hope, or maybe a trick of the dark. I sprinted toward it, using every ounce of strength I had left. As I approached, the light grew brighter, revealing the silhouette of a familiar landmark, the trailhead. In a final burst of adrenaline, I stumbled out of the forest and onto the gravel path where my car was parked. I collapsed against the side of my vehicle, my breath coming in sharp, ragged bursts. The forest loomed behind me, its darkness now a mere shadow on the edge of my vision. I didn't look back as I drove away, the echoes of the whispers still ringing in my ears. I left the forest and never returned, but the terror of that night lingered with me, a reminder that some places are best left unexplored, and some paths should never be walked at night.